Today's video is about the Chalcolithic age in India. The Chalcolithic age in India is also often called as the Chalcolithic Neolithic age in India, and this period lasted from around 6000 BCE to 800 BCE. And if you look at the distribution of sites, the sites that carries resemblance to Chalcolithic age can be found on the northwestern frontier of Indian subcontinent. These can also be found in Rajasthan, present-day Rajasthan, and in different other areas of Indian subcontinent. We see that people lived in that particular age when the use of copper was prevalent. Chalcolithic age is characterized by the use of copper and iron. The use of copper was more widespread, and which is why it is called as Chalcolithic age. But iron was also used, people knew about the use of iron. So this is a new phase in the history of humanity. Before Chalcolithic age, if you look at the Neolithic age, people knew about metal, and we find some very few metal objects from Neolithic settlements, but in the Chalcolithic age, for the first time, there was widespread use of metal, and different objects, tools, ornaments were made of copper. So this is a very new development in the history of humanity, and this development, like use of metal, confirms that people knew about the ore of copper and other metals that were in use, and it signifies that people were doing long distance travel to obtain metal like copper. And even though in before metal age, in Neolithic age, and also during Paleolithic and Mesolithic age, people used to do long distance travel, but these were mostly for sustenance, that is in the form of hunting and gathering. However, in Chalcolithic age, we see that people lived in settled areas. Most of the time, people lived as sedentary communities. However, they traveled to obtain metal. And in Chalcolithic age, people continued to use stone tools such as microliths, but at the same time, they also started using different other objects made of copper. And like Neolithic age, in Copper age, we see that people continued to make potteries, and varieties of pots and other objects of earth were made. Also, we see the existence of smiths, and they were doing metal work. There were also ivory workers, lime makers, terracotta makers. So in this time, in Chalcolithic age, these different occupations became widespread. And from Indian subcontinent, we have many places from where we find remains of settlements from Chalcolithic age. These includes Inamgaon, and from here we have some evidence of animal domestication. From Mehergarh, Mehergarh is a very important place from where we have evidence of continuous human settlement from Neolithic age, and the remains of Chalcolithic age can be also seen. From Mehergarh, we have some potteries that belong to the Chalcolithic age. These were wheel-made decorated potteries. The staple diet of Chalcolithic age includes wheat and barley, and from some sites we also see that people knew the use of irrigation technology. So that means there were developments from Neolithic age. So there were different tools and different technologies were used for agricultural activities. From Rajasthan, we have found some settlements that belongs to the Chalcolithic age, and these includes Bagor, Ganeshwar, Jodhpur, Sikar, Jaipur, Jhunjhunu, Baleshwar, Khetri, Ahar, and Gilund. And some of these sites are known by their pottery types, so we can often call them as culture on the basis of their pottery types. For example, when we talk about Malwa culture, we are talking about the pottery that were staple to the Malwa region. And from nearby areas where we find similar kind of pottery, we include these sites into Malwa culture. Similarly, we have another place site, another culture named after Ganeshwar Jodhpur sites, and there is another one which is Ahar or Banas culture. So these are some of the cultures that are distinguished by their pottery types. Like if we talk about Malwa culture, that means the sites that belong to Malwa culture had similar kind of potteries. If we talk about Ganeshwar Jodhpur culture, the sites that belong to Ganeshwar Jodhpur had similar kind of potteries. Same is the case with Ahar or Banas culture. So in case of Ganeshwar Jodhpur culture, just to elaborate it a bit further, Jodhpur is the first site that was discovered that belonged to Ganeshwar Jodhpur culture. They are known for wheel-made red to orange potteries. So for Ganeshwar Jodhpur culture, the typical pottery style is red to orange pottery. And first sample of this particular kind of pottery can be found from Jodhpur. Similarly, there is Ahar or Banas culture, and this culture is marked by black and red ware with linear and dotted designs. So this is another example of these cultures that whenever we talk about Ahar culture or Banas culture, the sites that carry resemblance to this particular culture are marked by these unique potteries which are black and red ware with linear and dotted designs. So the earliest site that was discovered and that belonged to Ahar culture is Balathal. And from Balathal we have found a massive mud wall which resembles a fort. So this is one of the earliest fortification that we have found because from Harappan civilization we have found many fortified settlements. Like almost all the settlements of Harappan civilization had fortifications, but in case of cultures, Chalcolithic cultures that we are talking about, these were marked by their pottery types, but they were not yet in a part of any civilization. From here also we have found some kind of fortification. And there is another culture that belongs to the Malwa region. Like Malwa is now partly in Maharashtra and partly in Madhya Pradesh. So from here we have found a distinguished kind of pottery, and on the basis of this pottery we call it Kayach culture. And the potteries were here wheel made, sturdy, with brown, violet or red slip on it. There were buff ware and combed ware also. So these are the typical Kayach culture potteries. Kayach tools and potteries also resemble Harappan civilization's potteries and Ganeshwar Jodhpur culture's potteries. So these resemblance indicate that perhaps there was trading connections or there was some kind of interactions going on amongst the people who lived in Malwa region and also those who lived in Rajasthan and those who belong to the Harappan civilization. So on the basis of potteries similarities we can say that. There is another culture that comes from the Dakkan area and it's called Savalda culture. And Savalda culture is marked by the potteries which were coarse, wheel made, and the color was usually chocolate color. The sites that belong to Savalda culture are Kaut and Daimabad. From eastern India also we have some places that belongs to or that resembles Chalcolithic settlements, and these includes Chirand, Chechar, Kutubpur, Sanaur. So here in these three places in eastern India we see that people lived in Neolithic age also and in Chalcolithic age also, and that we can determine on the basis of findings in the form of metal tools like objects made of copper.